you're working to rebuild community in a very fractured, in often fractured areas, the city or the metropolitan region. So we called it congregation-centered community organizing because we felt that, I feel anyway, in the United States that the congregations, the churches are in some ways, I don't want to say the last place where there's real community, but in the age of digital, Facebook and, the fact that people gather at least once a week in a building to share values and relationships is important. So that's the work I had been doing for a long time. And then in 2017, I decided that it's not working, this thing of building between city and suburb and a metropolitan organization. It just wasn't working. I thought it was my fault. I thought I was too old. And then, so about 3 weeks later after retiring, President Trump came down the escalator and said that I'm exaggerating, I'm sure, but all Mexicans are rapists or something. Might be a few good ones, and at the same time, from a Catholic tradition, the Pope was going up the escalator saying, wait a minute, we are brothers and sisters, immigrants are our brothers and sisters, and as Catholics, it's really in our tradition to receive immigrants as our brothers and sisters. Back in 2003, the U.S. Catholic bishops actually, with the Mexican Catholic bishops, wrote a letter called Strangers No Longer, which was a call for immigration reform in the United States. So the name of Strangers No Longer we got from the Catholic bishops. Now, so I'm going to, hopefully I don't fumble this thing. And so I'm going to do a quick slideshow. That's what I'm going to do a quick overview, and then we'll have time for just to talk. Is that okay? Yep. Oh, so I did this for Mother Maureen yesterday. Things are in flux. We are becoming something that we didn't start as, but we're becoming a network of Catholics and others. But we started in a Catholic thing. But we're becoming kind of a statewide network, or statewide, maybe even an organization. And our basic form of organizing is circles of support in parishes and high schools to respond effectively to what Pope Francis and the bishops were calling us to do. Now, that thing there of welcome, support, protect, and integrate, that came from Pope Francis. It's not just welcoming, but and supporting and protecting, but it's also integrate them into the community, into our community. And our circles of support do three things: education, accompaniment, and advocacy. And I'm going to fly through that. And Mike Klein is one of our long-term members of Strangers No Longer, and is one of the leaders of a circle of support at St. Charles Borromeo, if you know where that is, over toward the Eastern Market, behind the Capuchins, and Nativity, which is out Gratiot. So we have circles of support, and that's the three things they do. So we began in July of 2017. Now, here's how we began. 16 people got together over at the University of Detroit. 2 of them were priests, there were 2 nuns, 4 immigrants, and 8 lay leaders. So that's where we started in 2017. And the crisis was because at that time, early in the first Trump administration, massive deportations were happening in Southwest Detroit. Now, people outside Southwest Detroit weren't hearing about it, but it was happening. The Muslim ban was happening. And St. Anne's, which was a Catholic parish right there, couldn't handle all the people were coming saying, my husband's deported, I can't pay the electricity, I can't pay the rent, the landlord is offering me stuff that he shouldn't be offering. There was a lot of corruption happening. So, next slide. Let me try. that's where we began. But then a couple of weeks later, we had our first event. We just said, let's do something. And so we had our first event, and we had a conference over at U of D Mercy, Catholic Response to Immigrants, we called it. 120 people showed up. Now, to get 120 people in like 2 weeks' time, you know, that doesn't happen too often, which means that people were hungry. At least people we felt in the Catholic communities were hungry to do something. And we decided at that time, there was a key decision that we made by 2018. The key decision was, we're not going to become a little group or a group of experts. We're not going to be out there doing whatever as a small group. We're going to stay based in the parishes. We're going to be based in the parishes. As difficult as that is, a pastor might not be happy about it, or might not be supportive. A pastor might be afraid. Whatever the obstacles, we are going to stay in the parishes. And we started doing immigrant testimonies in parishes and in high schools. And you can see that 3 years after starting, we finally incorporated and got a 501c3. So these are the three things that the circles do: education, accompaniment, and support. And here, that's what one parish circle of support looks like. That's Resurrection Parish out in Canton. So they actually did an event at the parish there. It was it was a room about this size maybe in the parish hall, and they had foods from different countries. So it was a real celebration of immigrants in this community. So that's what they did. And then we have parish-based circles of support. We have about 30 now in Southeast Michigan. The pink, those are, I didn't have time to really update this, but those are the different Catholic, the dioceses of the Catholics in Michigan. So you can see where we have circles of support out in Lansing and Ypsilanti, out in Adrian, and then we also, and at least half of them are sponsoring or accompanying families. So, Mike, how many families have you guys at?
I think we're 4 or 5 right now.
Right, and
their husband got deported, or no notice. He's gone. Where is he? We don't know. I have a baby at home. I need food. That's when they come to us.
So that's one parish, but there's like 15 parishes that are doing that. So that's the strongest one, but there are others that are helping support families. That's a parish-based circle of support. I think that's out in Romeo. It is in Romeo. This is St. Anne's. The circle at St. Anne's invited their parishioners and others to hear that there's a nun there in the middle somewhere there. Where is she? If you've seen any news from Texas, the Texas border, she runs Catholic Charities in the border. They call it Catholic Charities of the Rio Valley, I think, Rio Grande Valley. Well, she's been targeted by the governor and by the Attorney General of Texas because they're trafficking. That's what she's been accused of, trafficking migrants. So actually what happens is people were coming across the border, had no place to stay. So the churches, not just Catholic, but there were churches that were taking them in and at least providing a soup kitchen or food. So there's been an effort to try to put her in jail. So right now there's very little happening at the border because of the enforcement. So we also have 10 immigrant circles of support. Now these would be women, mostly women, who are gathering together once a month, maybe more often. And what they do is, you can see there's some of them out in, there's a couple out in Grand Rapids, a couple up in Traverse City area, a new one up here of dairy workers up in the Thumb, and then a number of them around here. So they gathered for mutual support. They actually have once a month, they have a psychologist running group sessions for them by Zoom. The psychologist, she's a psychotherapist. She does group sessions with the women from Guadalajara. So she's in Mexico, but she does this by Zoom, and it's really been a very important thing for the women. But they also do pastoral and scripture reflection. They are learning to speak to congregations. So we love it when a congregation says, "Hey, look, we want to know more. Could we meet some of the women leaders?" That's who they were. This is a bit old. That woman there. That's when they gathered to hear her. That's kind of the leadership of the circle of support. And they prepare speakers. So Darice Bartolone, right there, is from Guatemala, and that's her little baby, her little boy, and that's U of D High School. So to help Darice get ready to give a presentation in schools and parishes, the women, the circle of support helps each other get ready to give their testimony. And there's the group up in Traverse City, and at the same time we have high school circles of support. So Judith, we were just talking about that. There's I think there's 12 now high schools that have circles of support inside the high school, and there's a moderator, a campus minister or teacher that pulls them together. They just had their annual conference a week ago. They had kids from eight schools. So anyway, it's a really great group. That's what they look like. That was the conference, I think, a year ago. You probably recognize some of those names. That's the whole group. I think this is maybe 2 years ago. And then the high school kids, actually met with the nun, and they were giving her a blessing. The high school kids were blessing her as she went on. Now, all of this is, so there's education in the parishes and the high schools. There's also accompaniment, helping families. My wife, Vicki, just told me today, Mother Maureen, that we should keep track of how many families. And I said, well, that's another job. So, but we also are doing advocacy. So this was our first effort. We had 360 people. This was over at the Millwrights and Carpenters' beautiful new training center. But we had 360 people from our parishes. Then you can see the high school kids lined up behind them. And there are legislators hidden here. There's 2 senators and 2 state reps that we asked them to really campaign hard around driver's licenses for immigrants. And so this here kicked off a 2-year campaign by our organization to get Michigan back to where immigrants could have a driver's license. They could actually learn, get safety and all that, like 18 other states. Michigan used to have it. The Attorney General or Secretary of State nixed it. And so we had a campaign to bring back driver's licenses for immigrants. It's the only way of ID. You go to a bank, you need a driver's license. And we eventually, after 2 years, we lost by 1 vote at the state legislature. It's a complicated story, but it ended up being 1 vote. Friday, this is the best I could do. Friday, we had a conference. Now, this here, the northern 21 counties are not exactly a bedrock of progressive, right? Well, yesterday or Friday, Friday, we had the first conference of the Northern Michigan Immigrant Inclusion Network. Up here, we had 185 people at the Treetops. If anybody ever goes up to Treetops, they have a big conference center. And it kind of blew people, so obviously I don't have any pictures, but anyway, it was kind of a mind-blowing, and people were like, I didn't know there was so much care and thoughtful care. So 185 people, our Catholic bishop went, there was a congressional candidate came, there were agencies Interlochen, you've probably heard of Interlochen, but there's English, there were school superintendents. It was kind of an amazing affair. So we organized that with money that we got from the Office of Global Michigan, which is under the governor, but the state legislature has allotted money to make Michigan a welcoming state. So of course there's a lot of tension. There's what effort to defund it, but anyway, it got through this year. So anyway, that was a big deal yesterday. And that, let's see, that got, this thing here, yesterday, Friday, got kicked off by, we had an assembly up there around advocacy, and there you can see, this was back in 2023, where we had 240 people in the western part of up in the Traverse region, 240 people meeting, advocating with these two men and a woman, that he's a senator, two representatives, to try to ask them to work to get mental health resources for Spanish speaking. Right? So it just was non-existent, but there's a lot of Spanish speaking up there. And the second part of the meeting was, and by the way, we don't have enough mental health resources for anybody, not just Spanish speaking, but the whole lack of mental health across the state, especially in the rural areas, but not only in the rural areas. So that's a camp, that was what we did there. And so we've done advocacy work on various things. Most of these are Adrian Dominican nuns, not all, but these are nuns that there were 30 of them, and that was one of our days up in Lansing advocating with the Senate. And there they are meeting with, at that time, the president of the Michigan Senate around driver's licenses. The immigrants, so it's not like, these are a bunch of Anglos going on behalf of. These are leaders of the immigrant circles of support that are integrated into the whole campaign, even though there's now increasing fear. So there's a big fear to do this, to even leave their houses. So, and then this is our, the top thing there is that's the high school kids. We've had now 2 masses, liturgies at the cathedral in October around the National Day of Migrants and Refugees. So we have a new archbishop. He actually led the mass back in October. This is a church-based. This here, I think, is from one of our, not every month, but most months we have a gathering of circle leaders. So leaders from the different parishes come together. Judith was there yesterday. Do you want to say a word, Judith, about your experience? Part of this is not just to get circles all over and circles in parishes, but also to build a network so that circle leaders don't feel isolated, that they actually are part of a community around Southeast Michigan or increasingly around the state. So building that kind of community is really important. Do you want to just say a word about that, or?
I can.
Go ahead.
Do you need this?
Yes. Well,
Just hold it in your hand.
I'll hold it in my hand. Actually, anyway, the leaders of the groups of circles of support gather once a month, and this was, although I've been working in immigration things for probably 20 years now, but I found that this group was extraordinary in terms of what they're doing to help people, to help immigrants. Unbelievable actions that they're performing, accompanying people to their hearings, supporting them monetarily. Can you hear me?
You're fine.
Am I okay? Closer? All right. Okay. Hold it. While I talk with my arms, I'm Italian. So anyway, things like there's I don't want to talk a long time, but there's a woman whose daughter has had multiple surgeries, and she has other children here. And several years ago, through the activities of this group, this woman was going to be deported. But she made a case, and there were a lot of people that supported her to have her remain to care for her daughter. The same woman today has to come to a hearing with 4 airplane tickets at $750 apiece. But this group gathered yesterday, is calling in all of their circle supporters to accompany this person to the hearing. So there are a lot of things going on that are under the radar that people just don't know about. And believe me when I tell you, there are people who are spending hundreds and hundreds of hours. And we have a family too. And I got information from some of the others about attorneys. They're paying extraordinary amounts of money to attorneys. That's it. That's not it, but that's all I'm going to say.
So that effort of, trying to build a network so that, well, pastors, you do the same thing, right? You have your collegiate college of pastors and so we feel the same thing about circle leaders, that circle leaders need to help each other. There's mutual support, there's learning. What are you doing over there? So that we do we did that yesterday. So I asked if Judith would say a word. So I think that's about it here. Who are we? A couple of things people may want to know. I'm sorry, Mother. We have a board of directors, 15 members, kind of around the state. 7 are immigrant women, 4 full-time staff, 2,000 people on our, on our mailing list. But we think we need to grow that. We have about 250 to 300 individual donors that in the fall, we have a fundraising campaign in the fall. I told you about the ad book, and that's another way to say, who are you? Okay. Where's the money come from? Well, the 250 individual donors, I didn't update this slide, but this year it was 120,000 from the fall, plus another 30,000 through the year. So we are not foundation dependent. We are really dependent on the people on our membership base, as is our churches. There's this thing here, the campaign. This is a campaign by the national bishops. We've got $50,000. The nuns groups have been giving about, like the Sisters of Mercy, $40,000. So we get money from different other religious groups. This one is this one here is that grant I told you about, that the state of Michigan has money and gave us $100,000 so we could do work up in the northern part. Largely because there's nobody else there are groups organizing around welcoming Michigan along the southern tier, but up there, we were the only ones that were up there. So that's why we got the funding. So I think we're getting to the end. So who are we becoming? We're a network of Catholics and others. In terms of Episcopal churches, there's Father Bob Altop over at Nativity in West Bloomfield and St. Peter's. And there's a third one, which I can't remember. Anyway, there's St. Luke's in Ferndale. And the bishop goes not every Wednesday, but the bishop Perry has been at our vigils. On the cover of the ad book, on the cover, that's a Wednesday morning vigil that we've been having every Wednesday since July 14th. And Bishop Perry has actually led some of the praying at the vigil. The vigil is outside the ICE office in downtown Detroit. So It's a network of Catholics and others. And that's what we do. I want to just say a word about why did we start Catholic? Professionally, my work was across ecumenical lines. But in 2017, I decided, or a couple of us decided, we're going to focus on Catholic. Why? Because in 2017, there had been 31 years where the hierarchy, the Archbishop, was not focusing on social justice, right? We had 3 straight archbishops that social justice was not, the Catholic social teaching was not focused. It was actually, so pastors didn't get encouragement to get involved in the broader community. So we decided in 2017 that we were going to try to rebuild a base of Catholics with or without the support of the hierarchy. We were going to build a base of Catholics, mostly lay people, some pastors who were, and certainly the nuns. So that's why we said we're going to focus on Catholic. If there's ever an interfaith movement, at least we'll be able to bring something to it. And that is in terms of numbers, in terms of real leaders in parishes. So that's why we started as Catholic. It wasn't what I had been doing for years, but in 2017, it just made sense. Somebody's got to focus on the Catholic base. So that was that. So I think that's the last one. Okay, thanks a lot, Mother.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Mother.
I want to touch on a few things. I wanted to come back to this slide. I know this is, I think, where we started. So when we had our first meeting here about 6 weeks ago, well, a week or two before Easter, we got to learn some of the concrete things that circles are doing and some of the concerns in neighborhoods like ours. We learned about a family just a few blocks from here where the father was picked up. They were asylum seekers from Colombia, picked up by ICE and sent up to Baldwin, where I understand now there are 300 or so people engaged in a hunger strike because the care there is so completely lacking. And we don't, they put that site up there. It's kind of out of sight, out of mind. But my understanding is it's one of the largest ICE detention facilities in America. And that's a lot of people that are up there. So, and I learned at that meeting that when they never know when they're going to be released. And they release them in the middle of the night. So if they picked them up in July in flip-flops and a T-shirt, they'll let them out in February at 2 in the morning or whatever in flip-flops and a T-shirt, and no one knows they're being released. And so some of the work that's happening is observers watching this and being there to catch people as they come out and then bring them somewhere safe so they can be evaluated medically, clothed, fed, and then returned to their families. So that is some of the work that is happening very quietly. One of the other things I learned at the meeting is how much is going on in our community very quietly. People are caring for their neighbors, but we need more people to care. Another concern this summer is for all of the people that will be working on our lawns, repairing our roofs, painting our houses. One of the things that's been happening in our country is people will do a roof. And as they complete the roof, rather than paying for the work, the homeowner calls ICE and they're arrested. And the roof never got paid for and they go off to detention facility. This is immoral. It's just immoral behavior. And so we have many people in our yards throughout the summer who the concern is that they will begin to be picked up very easily by ICE. So education, accompaniment, advocacy. So one of the things I hope that we accomplish is a campaign of education for homeowners this summer, so that if you have people who do your lawn or repairing your roof or whatever, so you know what their rights are and you know how to keep them safe and what you can do for them as they work on your property is your duty. It is literally your duty to keep them safe as you can. So that's one of the things I hope we'll accomplish this summer. Accompaniment. So that is going with people when they have a trial or a hearing.
We are, so somebody, an immigrant has his or her meeting with ICE down on Michigan Avenue, 985 Michigan Avenue. And what's going to happen, I'm afraid, and so what we're trying to offer, we are offering now, but we're going to try to expand this court accompaniment, is so that so that as many people as possible have somebody going with them that speaks English, that shows that the community knows that this person is here. We're not going to tackle the ICE officers. We're not going to do that, but we're going to accompany. And in many ways, that's a more of a pastoral thing. It's not a legal thing. It's not to be lawyers. It's just to be with the family. We got word from San Diego, the San Diego diocese, that when the bishop kicked off this court accompaniment thing, it was just every day the ICE officers would be in the hallway outside the courtrooms. So the ICE officers, masked or not, would be outside the courtroom. And when a pastor would show up or a clergy person would show up, the ICE officers would slowly disappear. So there's some protection, we hope. So we are going to try to do that. We're going to look for probably like 100 volunteers that would be willing to go one day every month or one day every 6 weeks and just be part of the team. So,
Well, and the exciting thing is we can be part of that. Like, you can do it. You yourselves can do this. It is not work that's only for some special few people to engage in. All the work we have seen in Minneapolis was just regular people, just ordinary folks who cared about their neighbors. And continue to care and do that work. But the other thing is all of the learning that has happened. So I was talking to my daughter the other day, her and her husband in Minneapolis. They've been active in all of this and all the things that have been learned. So if you're the kind of person who's out sort of patrolling the neighborhood looking out for ICE, you cannot deliver groceries to a family in hiding because ICE has captured your plate number and you could accidentally expose that family. This is what we have learned through experience of others. And so the sharing of this knowledge that's happening through these very grassroots, which is like the pasture I may have been talking about in my sermon, right? Grassroots work is the pasture of the kingdom of God that we are all called to inhabit. And so we're really, really grateful to Judith for bringing this to our attention so that we can be organized into a circle of support here at Christ Church. Does anyone have any questions before Bill goes? One, two.
Oh, yeah, I have a question. My church in Philadelphia was part of a sanctuary church, so we housed an immigrant family that was facing deportation. And I know there are churches in Detroit that are helping like house families and accompany them to like court hearings. Are you connecting at all with the churches that are doing that work? Because they also have just a lot of knowledge. It's been going on for a long time.
So it's a question about sanctuary churches.
yeah, back in 1983, the sanctuary movement was a very big thing. The Episcopal Church was kind of at the lead in that from Texas. So it became known as the sanctuary movement, and refugees really from the war in El Salvador started this whole thing, and it became others. But over at St. Regis or St. Rita's over on 8 Mile, there was a family from El Salvador that the church kept them in the rectory. And there was some danger in that for the church, but we realized that nothing happened. All right. Fast forward to 2000 and let's say 17, 18, 19, when we first started, sanctuary was under the word sanctuary cities. The presidential administration went after sanctuary cities, and we decided in some conversation with the pastors who were getting pressure from the Archbishop, don't do that. So we don't use that word sanctuary. There are and I would tend to say, I don't think we have any, I'm trying to think, none of our parishes have actually housed a family that was undocumented, for instance, in the building. There was one in Ann Arbor Catholic Church, I think. I forget. Oh, you too? Okay. But we don't make a big deal out of calling it sanctuary. We're not trying to draw attention to it. So in our case, Luce lived in her apartment with her kids, and the support was that way. But we don't use that word sanctuary. Does that make sense? We're trying to do the work without jeopardizing. Yeah, the Archbishop would have been mad at the pastor.
Sometimes you gotta like fly under the radar a little. Betsy, you
Well,
had,
you mentioned this summer and roofers and lawn. What, as a homeowner, and I have a group working on my house, what is my what can I say or do to help those people? And what are my rights as a homeowner, private property, when something comes
yeah. One of my goals.
driving up?
One of my goals this summer is that we create a postcard.
Sure,
That it
yeah.
contains that information in a real handy form.
That'd be great.
So you can keep it on your refrigerator, but also so you can hand it out to your neighbors.
And shove it in someone's face if they're
Yeah.
coming at you.
And then, I like we have Organic Matters who does our lawn work here, and to maybe even reach out if you have a company that you're working with and asking them, have you educated your team on their rights? My son-in-law works as a manager of a landscaping team in Minneapolis, and he had a meeting and educated all the people that work for that company so they know their rights when they go out into the workplace. So I think if we it's a real simple thing to create an easy postcard that you can all take and as many as you want to give out to your neighborhood.
Well, we did up in Romeo, St. Clement did that, but, it was clear that this was from St. Clement, so that people in the neighborhood, whether they're church members or not, they know that at least there is Christ Church or there's St. Clement as a place where you can go and either get more information or, what advice or some solidarity or something.
Jim?
It seems a lot of emphasis on the Latino community, which I totally understand. But is there any section of the organization that ministers to African immigrants?
Yeah, there's actually, it's not Abisa, if you look up Abisa, and I'm not exactly sure what it means, but Abisa is dedicated to the African diaspora. That's what they call it. So it's something like the African Bureau of something and social services, and located on the west side. But Abisa is working in that area. Now, what we're heading towards on that question, that's kind of a good question. We're heading towards June 29th. We're planning on having like an issues assembly to build, support, and ratify what could the governor do if elected? What can a governor or Secretary of State or Attorney General or U.S. Senator do in November if elected that would make Michigan more welcoming? So at that gathering, June 29th, our goal is to get as many, like the Ugandan community, the Haitian community, the Abisa. There's now a lot of the Muslim clergy have gathered. There's actually some Jewish congregations that want to do it, but there's other struggles that they're dealing with. Anyway, we're going to try to get as many people, as many different bodies together, both the religious congregations, but also the different nationalities together to ratify, Governor, here's what we want you to do. We heard somebody at our meeting yesterday, Judith, said that they went to the state Democratic convention and there was almost zero mention of immigration, according to two people. So we've got some work to do. I'm sorry.
No, I don't want to hold you. So, because you've got another thing, I got another thing. But is there even one more question that we might take?
How do you hear about your events? So you keep saying you have conferences and stuff. Like, how do we go to your a website or I don't know, you mentioned an email list?
If
How do you get the word out that you're having an event?
Just strangers no longer. That's, okay, I'm going to give you two. Strangersnolonger.org. On the home page, scroll down and you'll see newsletters. That's, but I think on the very start, at the top of the page, it says sign here, sign up for our newsletter. So please, that would be a great thing, just sign up for the newsletter. The other is, I think you're going to have a circle here, and being part of a circle of support here would be, that's the other way. And then Judith, every month, Judith and the circle leaders have a meeting every month, and that's a good place. So there's 3 ways, really. Okay.
What's our next step? Christ Church's next step.
So we've had 2 kind of like preliminary meetings, I would call them. And so that we'll begin to have, continue to have those meetings and decide what our focus is, so that we're not spreading ourselves too thin or just flailing around, and then begin to work towards that focus. We've already done some work helping this family where the father was taken away. He's back. He got returned to his family. His future is, he is ransomed. His future is still perilous. You know what's going to happen with him. So we'll continue to support and love that family. And then, like I said, we will decide what do we want our focus to be so that we can be effective in our community.
Third Thursday of the month at 3 o'clock. Sorry? Third Thursday of the month here at Christ Church. At what time? 3 o'clock.
Well, Bill, thank you.
Oh, great. Hey, thanks a lot. This was great.
Yeah.
I've never been in an undercroft. No, really, thanks very much. It's really great being here. It's an honor to be here.
Thank you for coming back.
Okay. I'll see you third Thursday.